Rosen, and today's topic is Hearn and sports. Why look at Hearn and sports? Well, I believe that a deeper look into his relation with sports and physical activity gives us another angle of entry into his mind and adds another dimension to our understanding of the man and his works. Let's see what the sports that Hearn enjoyed are. There are 4 sports that Hearn was very interested in. Let's look at first swimming, surfing, Kyudo, and judo. Part 1 of my talk will deal with the swimming and surfing, the water sports, and part 2 will deal with the Japanese sports. Okay, first let's look at where Hearn swam. Ireland in Tremor in the Irish Sea, then Louisiana, the Gulf of Mexico, Martinique at the Caribbean Sea, and in Japan at various places, Inasa, Yabase, and Yaizu in Shizuoka. Let's take a closer look at each place and what Hearn said and thought about them. One thing we should be aware of, and you can probably tell from the slide, is that Hearn swam always in the sea. He never mentioned swimming in a pool, a river, or lake. First, at Tremor. Tremor is a small village in the south of Ireland, about 164 or 5 kilometers south of Dublin. And at Tremor, Hearn learned to love the sea. He's 7 years old when his great aunt Sarah Bernane takes him in the summertime to Tremor for several years. And there he learned to swim and to love the sea. In fact, he was a rather lonely child, and the sea became his lifelong friend. Let's take a look at the beach at Tremor, where Hearn probably swam as a child. This is what the beach looks like at Tremor, very wide and beautiful clouds, and no wonder Hearn began to love the sea at this place. The next place where Hearn swam and wrote quite a bit about that experience is Grand Isle, Louisiana in the United States. If you are not familiar with the US, Louisiana is here at the bottom, and Grand Isle is right here off the coast of Louisiana near in the Gulf of Mexico. You see here Georgia, and Atlanta, Georgia is Kumamoto. So you can get an idea that this was rather south. And in the US, very warm and enjoyable place to go. Let's take a closer look at Hearn at Grand Isle. In August of 1884 and July of 86, Hearn enjoyed several weeks of swimming there. And in his letter back to his editor, he was a newspaper writer, his editor, Paige Baker, in Louisiana, he wrote, "I had not been in the seawater for 15 years. You can scarcely imagine how I rejoice in it. In fact, I don't like to get out of it at all." Okay, well here is the beach at Grand Isle. Of course, I don't have a photo of how it used to look, but it's very rustic. And I'm sure Hearn enjoyed getting away from the hustle and bustle of New Orleans. Now, Grand Isle used to be a plantation, and Hearn talks about his guest rooms. They were former slave cabins, but most importantly, he reveled in the sea. Here he boasts of his ability. The islands are wonderful and their seas are tepid. The water is quite warm. Hearn never liked the cold, and he would like to live there forever, he says. And he starts to boast about his swimming ability. The islanders found, "I had one claim to physical superiority anyhow. I could outswim the best of them with ease." Okay, you'll notice here I have a rough Japanese translation in case our viewers are not so familiar with the English. So you can look at that if you don't understand the English. Okay, the next place that Hearn loved to swim was even farther south. This was Martinique. And Martinique, as you can see, is past Cuba all the way down to here. This is the French West Indies at that time. We're almost at South America, and of course, very, very warm. Hearn wrote his 2 years in the French West Indies while living there, and in his letters, he often mentions how much pleasure he is getting from swimming in the Caribbean Sea. Okay. What did the beach look like at Saint Pierre, the capital of Martinique? We don't have it when Hearn was there, but almost 1902 picture of the Martinique Saint Pierre beachhead is as follows, and a more modern picture is here. And this too looks like a very inviting beach that Hearn would have enjoyed sea bathing at. But Hearn did not live only in Saint Pierre. He was in another place called Morne Rouge and enjoyed bathing at Morne Rouge. And if you look at the picture that I was able to find, it certainly looks like an idyllic place, and Hearn's enjoyment of swimming there is very clear. Okay, next time Hearn mentioned swimming, it's Japan. Where in Japan would Hearn swim? The San-in coast on his honeymoon. He writes a long letter. I have been traveling alone with my little wife, swimming across all the bays I could find on the Izumo coast. So this is the Sea of Japan. And I'm sure his wife, Setsu, had to sit on the beach and watch him swim back and forth across the bay and showing her his prowess at swimming. They take me to be a good swimmer here, but I'm afraid to face a really rough shore. Anyway, Hearn wrote to his friend in the US that he is a really superior swimmer in Japan as well. Okay. One place on his honeymoon that Hearn really enjoyed was the town of Yabase in Tottori. And he said it's a pretty town, superb beach, but no one swims in it, only the children. I go whenever I can. So whenever I go to swim, the entire population come to watch me. Happily, in red, I'm a very good swimmer. Could swim for 24 hours without fatigue. Well, it may be a bit of an exaggeration, but we can see here that Hearn had a lot of confidence in his upper arm strength and ability to swim for a long time. He doesn't mention swimming fast, but he does mention swimming for a long time. Let's look at the beach at Yabase where Hearn was swimming. This is what it looks like more modern, and we can see, as Hearn said, most of the bathers look like children, a few with their parents. Okay, a more modern picture of Yabase Beach from a different angle is here. So, I mean, you know, one beach looks pretty much like another, and from this picture we can't really tell very much, except it does look like a very inviting place. And on his honeymoon, Hearn praised Yabase Beach. Now, at Yabase, Hearn began to have an interest in another sport, surfing. Let's see what he wrote to his friend Chamberlain in Tokyo. Okay, there came down to the beach with planks, boards, divers boys, various boys who swam far out and came in, as the Americans say, a-kiting. So he doesn't use the word surfing, he uses an old word, a-kiting, on the crests of the waves. Okay, and he wants to learn how to do it. So I offered to teach the surfers what I know about swimming. in exchange for instruction as to how to come in a kiting, surfing on a surfboard on the top of the wave. Okay, now modern surfboards, of course, are not the same thing that Hearn would have used. Here is a picture of a surfboard around the time Hearn was in Japan. And this is a picture of Hawaii at Diamond Head, but we can see that the surfboard is really just a piece of wood. Okay, now Hearn, day one, day two, he is still talking about surfing. The people go out in high surf, of course, high waves, and come in on boards balanced on top of the wave. They shoot into shore like a flash of lightning. I tried to learn this, but have not succeeded. So although Hearn tried surfing for 1 or 2 days, he did not learn how to do it. Okay, the next place that Hearn talks about his swimming is in Shizuoka, and that is Yaizu. Hearn spent several summers after moving to Tokyo with his children in the sea town of Yaizu, the Sugura Bay, Shizuoka Prefecture. And an interesting point is Kazuo's memory that he and his father swam very far out to sea, and both of them were struggling, but they were able to come back to shore safely. And Kazuo, in his reminiscences, talks about his father's praise. His father said to him, if you can swim that much, you are quite safe. So for Hearn, swimming was also a practical skill as well as enjoyable. Here's what the beach at Yaizu looks like now. I don't know what it looked like in Hearn's time, but it's probably pretty much the same. And Hearn looked forward to going there for at least a month every summer, taking the children and leaving Setsu mostly back in Tokyo. Okay, so for Hearn, what was swimming? For Hearn, swimming was therapy. There are many places where he talks about it, but let's just look at what I've marked in red. The water is making me feel like a new man. Number 2, the more I go in the water, the better I feel. So I've given about 5 hours a day to swimming. Can you imagine swimming for 5 hours a day? I enjoy the sea, never a second sick. So Hearn believed his long hours of swimming and bathing in seawater were therapeutic medicine. 4, I had a fever and I couldn't get rid of it, but now I'm getting right and will be off to the sea to recruit. So even after a sickness, he went to the ocean for health reasons. And finally, the very breath of the ocean gives new soul to the blood. So, to wrap up, swimming was the only sport or exercise that Hearn felt confident enough in to boast about. I've never heard him boast about his ability. I've never read about his boasting of any other sport. It was enjoyable, it was practical. If a ship went down, swimming would save your life. He taught his children how to do it. And it was rejuvenating, giving new life to his spirit and his body. The sea was his lifelong friend and provided spiritual as well as physical revitalization. And let me end with a quote which shows how much Hearn loved the sea. To his friend Dr. Mattis in New Orleans, he wrote, when one becomes bathed in this azure and gold air, saturated with the perfumes of the sea, he can't help writing something. It was an inspiration for him to write. He cannot help feeling a new sense of being. The soul of the sea mingles with his own and is breathed into him. The spirit that moveth over the sea is the creator indeed, creator being God, vivifying, making you alive, illuminating, making things clear, and strengthening, making you strong. I really feel his religion, the sense of awe that comes on one in some great silent temple. Okay, the ocean was like a temple, and for Hearn, it was probably as close as he ever felt to divine inspiration. Okay, thank you very much. Next is part 2.